Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the podcast. I was joined by Jonny Mack from Washington Backcountry, who has a really cool platform that actually takes people out hunting for the first time, introduces people to hunters that maybe want to be a mentor to a new hunter, and we're talking adults, kids, it doesn't really matter. It's a really cool platform, who is also a fairly new hunter starting at age 29 himself. And just really appreciate the conversation and the perspective that he provided, and just the service of hunter recruitment that he's doing in Washington and the plans that he has. It's really cool. So for somebody that has got into hunting, bow hunting at age 29, and then as you'll hear, didn't have success for his first 2 years, or actually 4 years, I think. It was pretty cool to hear his experience and how he stuck with it. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. One quick message is that if you haven't yet and you want to become a patron, www.patreon.com/onpointpodcast. That will get you to the link to where if you want to become a patron, the benefits of doing that, you can actually steer the conversation. You can let me know, hey, ask this guy this, and I will get those questions answered for you. There's any level of patronage, if that's even a word, gets you into that exclusive, right? And then also you're going to know ahead of time what my schedule is for podcasting, so you know when I'm going to be doing a podcast that you're definitely going to be interested in, or a guest that you have questions for. Also, what that does is it helps support the show, so I can buy better equipment, so I can be able to afford to grow the podcast, and all that money that you give to Patreon goes directly back into the podcast and helps get information to the people who need it. So I really appreciate everybody listening to this thing, and I really had a great time recording with John. He's a great guy, and I hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you at the end of the episode. But all right, man. Well, what do you say we get this thing rolling?
Well, let's do it.
So give me a quick intro, real quick. Your elevator sales pitch of who you are.
All right. Well, my name is Jonny Mack. I am the owner-operator of Washington Backcountry. It is a group, a social media, web-based group that is dedicated to the advancement of hunting through recruitment and mentorship for new hunters.
So when you say recruitment, you guys are trying to get people into the sport? Yeah.
So, I started hunting when I was 29. I'm what you would consider or be called an adult onset hunter. Someone who did not have the opportunity to learn it through their childhood. And so
that's really interesting. So what made you want to get into it at age 29? What was the catalyst for that?
So, I believe that innate within each human, there are certain characteristics and motives that drive people. And for me, being in the wild is where I would find myself. And I think being a hunter is a part of being in the wild. And being a man, not that to make this a male-female thing, just me as an individual, but there's that sense of wanting to accomplish things and the sense to want to take care of things. And I think all that gets wrapped up into why I wanted to become a hunter.
Interesting. So did you have much experience with like eating venison and wild game meat, or did you know anybody that was even into it prior?
No. So the first time I had any type of wild game meat, I was probably 26, 27 years old.
Really?
My brother used to be in the news. He was a news reporter, and he got hired in San Antonio, Texas. And so, part of the South Texas culture of, you can hunt before you go to work because you go sit in a blind in front of a deer feeder and all that stuff. And so he actually was able to shoot a couple deer and a hog down in Texas, but But even from that, he never truly passed it on to me. But when I went down there, I got to try some of his deer for the very first time.
That's freaking awesome. I mean, it's funny that you talk about Texas, because I just got invited here recently to go down there and hunt for the first time, and I'm a little nervous, not only because I've never hunted that kind of stuff before, or the ways that they hunt before, but God, you talking about Texas has just already got me buzzing to go. I'm like, it's in December next year, so is your brother still living down there?
No, my brother actually lives up here, and he, when he has tried to hunt up here in the Northwest, he hasn't even seen any of his quarry that he's searched after when he's hunted. So really? It's kind of ironic that, you can call yourself a hunter or be a hunter, but the understanding of knowledge from region to region doesn't transfer very well.
So when did he move back up here, and has he found success yet?
Nope, he has yet to find success. And actually, I'm taking him out tomorrow to do a predator hunt. Hopefully it being cold and month of January, we can get on some predators.
I'm glad you're hitting a lot of areas that I've had on my mind lately, because it's January now, and my area got closed to predator hunting for bears now, but for cougars because they hit the quota. Yep. And I'm like, man, I really want to go out. Like predators are a problem here in Oregon. It's not a secret, but I want to be a part of the solution rather than just keep bitching about it. Like, if you bitch about something without a solution, you're just complaining. You're not being part of the solution. Right. And I really want to go out. I don't even care if it's with a gun. I just want to go out and try and call one in, but I want to do it with my bow. With a predator call. That would be so cool. And I know around here, I've heard of actually quite a few guys using Fox Pros, trying to call in something, and then here comes a cougar.
Yep, it can be done. It can be done. I haven't, obviously being new to hunting, I haven't had too many different experiences like that, but I believe it's going to happen at some point.
So you said you started at 29, and yep. How old are you now?
So I started at 29. I'm 34 right now, so I turned 35 this May. And it took me 4 years to be able to finally notch my first big game tag. And it was with a rifle, actually, in the backcountry of Washington, 9 miles deep. And it was on a black bear of all animals.
Really?
Yeah. So, which some people hunt all their lives and still have yet to kill a bear. And it's just ironic that was the first animal that I could get my hands on.
Yeah. Well, what also strikes me about that statement is that you're 9 miles deep and you're just starting out. So it's like you dove straight into it. It's like, here we go.
Right. Well, I had a backpacking background. I used to work for REI while I was a new teacher and just out of college and all that. And so I loved backpacking. I loved fishing. That's where, I knew that I wanted to be a hunter, because I loved the wild. I loved going to wild places and being in the wilderness. But what I didn't realize, when you become a hunter, animals aren't around every corner. when you're in the wilderness, they are a lot harder to find than you would expect.
So my question is another one. So when you started out, because at that age, probably went out with somebody. Did you go out by yourself?
For backpacking?
No, for hunting, like your first year.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I had no real mentorship. I married my wife. Her father hunted, but he is in his 70s, and he just doesn't, it's not as easy. The game has changed a little bit. I went out with him a couple times, muzzleloader hunting for deer.
Mm-hmm.
And
probably just driving around and stuff, or
yeah, more or less. And he was like, "Man, this doesn't look like it used to." And I'm like, "Well, that paints my father-in-law in a bad light, and that's not what I mean." But it kind of goes to show, it's like, yeah, the forest grows up, and the regulations change, and things just aren't like they used to be.
It's funny you say that, because the bull that I killed this year was actually pretty darn close to where I was cutting my teeth elk hunting, and it was thick reprod, and it was pretty. It was just when I started, they were saplings, and now they're like 20-foot tall, 30-foot tall trees, or not even 20. Yeah, probably 20-foot tall trees, and it was like, man. Stuff changes, and if you're not on top of it, I mean, a 10-year-old unit, you're starting to get pretty thick.
Right, and the animals that were hanging out in that time when it was younger, have moved on to different locations.
Yeah.
So,
yep, that's funny, because also one thing that I've noticed, because I've hunted the same area for almost my whole life, is after they cut a unit, you can see all of their trails that were going through the timber in there. And then for another month or two, they're going to keep using those trails because, and this is just my opinion, but they've been like the habit. They're in the habit of using those escape trails. And so until they figure out, no, this is what we're going to do now, you'll catch them out in the middle of a unit, just that has nothing there for them, but they're running through this unit on a trail that was there prior to being cut until they get out of that habit. It's really, really, really interesting.
That's good perspective. I like that.
I've seen it tons of times. My buddies, the guy that taught me how to elk hunt with a bow, actually was hunting an area that just got logged. I think the year before that. They hadn't planted it back yet, and there was a big 6-point with a herd of cows running one of those old trails, and they pretty much pulled over and shot him. I mean, it was like blind luck, but not completely, because they knew that was an escape route, and they were hunting that area, and there was a lot of pressure, and it kind of just, I don't know, it's just educated. It's just a kind of an educated guess, and those elk were still on the habit of using that trail. So it's just really interesting perspective there. But so you started with a rifle.
So I started with a rifle, and so I didn't have anyone else that hunted. My brother was busy trying to pursue his career, and he wasn't familiar with how to hunt the Northwest. And so I recruited some buddies with me, and I was like, "Hey, man, you guys want to get your hunter safety going?" And they started and ended up making a connection and finding a spot that was good for bear. And on that hunt, that kind of started it, but I ran into a group of other hunters, and they ended up telling me, they're like, "Hey, listen, if you really want to hunt elk, you gotta do it with a bow. That's the true way and your best chances." And I was like, "Well, shoot, I've been hunting for 4 years, and I just now killed an animal. I want to shorten my learning curve as much as possible." And it's 2000. This is just a year or so ago. So that fall, the Born and Raised series, Land of the Free, came out, and I got to watch what archery elk hunting is all about. And I was like, okay, I get this. I want that experience. And so this last January, a year ago, I bought a bow. Got it in my hands probably around February or March from a great guy. So I live 20 minutes north of Seattle, and I was driving 3.5 hours to a guy to get a bow down in Aberdeen, Washington. And because hey, who's your bow guy? Who would you trust? Who do you go to? And they're like, I go to Matt Schmitz of Bull of the Woods Archery. And I was like, okay, done. I don't care how long of a drive it is. I'm gonna go see him.
You're lucky they didn't say the bow rack.
Right.
That's deep in Oregon.
Oh, yeah. Well, shoot, I probably would have saved a little tax.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I go down there and he's showing me what a bow is and, you know, all this different stuff. And I mean, listen, I'm a newbie and a rookie, but I understand things. So I'm shooting and I'm like, dude, this is great. And so after a couple more trips and, you know, calling or messaging Jason Phelps on Instagram and saying, hey, what diaphragms do you recommend for a new person? And all of that, I was full gung ho on trying to archery elk hunt.
That's pretty cool. So you went straight to Phelps. That's the same calls I use too, man. I've used Primos for years, and even the ones that guys make fun of, the Blue Reed Terminator Bugle, and you know, I just called in bowl after bowl after bowl with that thing when we started going over Eastern Oregon, and then just seeing like where the calls have progressed to now where I use Phelps calls, use bugling bull calls. I like supporting the Jacobson, Corey Jacobson. That's I think his dad's Rocky Jacobson.
Yep.
And good guys over there, and then finally just have kind of landed on Phelps and really appreciate, you know, what he does, and he's such a cool guy, and I feel like I'm supporting local even though he's not to me. But,
right. Yeah, I just, you know, I figured, you know, he's a local guy. I can go to him for questions, and he tends to respond to every question you give him.
Yeah. You know, another guy that's like that is Aaron Snyder. That guy is so reachable. It's crazy. Like, you figured he'd be busy. He's a busy guy, but he's still, like, if you have a question about a pack, he was answering them. Like, for me personally, back when I was looking at packs, it was like, dude, what are you doing answering my questions? You know, like, shouldn't you be pawning me off on, like, one of your minions? But no, I mean, it's just that mentality of those guys, and it's kind of funny how those are the companies that are really growing right now, the ones that are taking time to actually do that.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing how specifically Instagram, you could say social media, but Instagram is the absolute catalyst for business, but yet at the same time making every single person reachable.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many times I've had actually business conversations through the direct messages. Like, that's how you and I started messaging.
Yeah, that's exactly. You and I started connecting. So a part of my Washington backcountry journey, I started writing a book last spring about the same time I got a bow in my hand, and I was writing about my journey to becoming a hunter and the story of me killing my black bear and all the rookie mistakes of me trying to pack out a black bear solo with cape included 9 miles to the car in one trip, and like just ridiculous. Well, during that time, I was trying to do research for mentorship for hunters, and why did I never have a mentor, or why are there no mentorship opportunities for hunters? And so I started researching, and I was like, oh, there's some guy out in Montana that mentored a hunter, and I'm going to reach out to him and see if he has an Instagram account. So I hit him up and just, you know, unload some questions on him, and then with are you this guy? And it turned out being the editor-in-chief of Outdoor Life magazine. And all of a sudden, him and I were having conversations back and forth, and I was like, wow, this is incredible who you can get a hold of. Yeah,
absolutely. It's really cool, and I gotta say, I think it's because, especially in the bow world, it's hard, and guys understand how hard it is to start off, and no one really. I mean, you got to earn your stars and stripes at some point on your own, but being able to help speed up that process for guys, I think that's really rewarding for guys that have already been down that path. They're like, dude, let me help you. You know, like,
definitely. And a part of my journey is I wanted to speed up the process of me and my learning curve to therefore be able to help others. And so my elk hunt in this year, I was able, the very first time I ever shot an antlered animal, I've yet to even shoot a deer, was a beautiful 6x6 Western Washington bull that came in and pretty much changed my life and just how I look at hunting. But it was all with the bow and calling them in and all that. But what I did is I wanted to go an expensive route to shorten the learning curve. And so I ended up doing a trade with an outfitter where I traded a really high-end rifle away to get a guided hunt on public land. So even though it was a public land hunt, I had someone with me who I could constantly ask questions to. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You know, and I gained a lot of insight on how to hunt and how to hunt elk specifically because of going through that process.
So that's really interesting. I see like on some of the Facebook pages, like elk addicts, guys are starting to get into elk hunting and they want to hire an outfitter to speed up that learning curve like you've done. Do you feel that you got your money's worth out of that? I mean, you killed the bull and all, but do you feel like you learned enough to really make it worth it?
Man, I'd say, first off, thanks for asking that question, because that was the internal struggle that I had. And I remember talking with my wife and being like, you know, Megan, I want to advance Washington backcountry and I want to learn more about hunting and I want to be able to mentor people, but is it worth trading the material value for something untangible?
We can't go any further without you telling me what kind of, was this like a Gunworks?
No, so it was a Christensen Arms AR-10 platform with a Trigicon scope on it, and the carbon fiber barrel, and
those are sweet guns.
So I traded that gun straight for a $3,500 elk hunt.
Okay,
that
seems pretty fair.
Just to put a value on it.
Yeah, that seems pretty fair. I'm like, man, what kind of heck of a gun is he shooting here?
Right? Yeah. I'm not that rich. I've acquired things through trades a lot of times in my life.
That's funny. So back to was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Yeah, it was like I'm never truly going to be able to afford a gun like that moving forward in the future. So is it worth me giving this up for the potential of not actually shooting an elk? Mm-hmm. And going into it, I said, absolutely. When I had my experience with my outfitter, even though I shot an elk, I still felt very dissatisfied with the whole process. The outfitter industry is very interesting, and you better do your research on your outfitter, because I learned a lot about just how people, it's a customer service industry. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of shadiness that can happen in that industry if they don't like you.
I want to ask you more in depth to elaborate on, because I know outfitters here locally that, they're great people. And before you get into your story here, because I have a feeling there's a little bit of not a good experience with this. I want to preface this because I know outfitters that are great guys. I've hunted with one outfitter before in my life in Africa, and it wasn't all positive, and most of it was. But I'm just curious to hear from somebody's perspective. What kind of things would you suggest looking into prior to booking something like that? Because I've never actually booked one in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what kind of left you feeling that there was more meat left on the bone from that experience?
Oh man, let's see, this is going to turn into a couple-hour podcast. Just now talking about all this, we're going to Cant of Worms. So first and foremost, the outfitter reached out to me. I was selling my gun, and they were the one that reached out to me and offered a trade. And there's a forum for the state of Washington in regards to hunters, and there was one very upset customer that left a review on that forum, and it created a long argument, a digital argument between the outfitter and the people. And so I
guys were
tried
busting out the popcorn emojis.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I was like, oh shoot, this guy obviously upset somebody, whether it was for the right reason or wrong reason, but someone left unsatisfied. And this guy's reaching out to me. Is this really going to be worth it? But at the same time, I can't be picky and be like, hey, to an outfitter that's really well known, hey, can I trade you this for that?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to make a livelihood also. And I understand that. But, so that was like the first hiccup. The second hiccup was trying to coordinate the days in which we were hunting. And there's just a huge lack of communication going into the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a school teacher by trade, and in my school district, they only allow us to take unpaid time off once every 5 years. And I had to put in for this the previous school year. And so for me to take a week off in September at the beginning of school, it was a major ordeal to take, go 7 days in the woods and leave a substitute with my classes at the beginning of school year.
Mm-hmm.
So about 2 weeks prior to our hunt, he calls me up and is like, hey, we're canceling the hunt because of fire danger. And I'm like, oh man, well, is there anything else we can do or anywhere else we can go? It's I understand I traded you something. If this hunt's going to be canceled, I don't have the ability to do it next year or move it back to different times. So I'm going to need that rifle back,
Mm-hmm.
which typically there's a deposit on hunts and all that. So I understand how at some point trading for something changed it rather than, a non-refundable deposit versus the full effect. And so he was like, well, yeah, let me see what I can do. And so he ended up getting back to me. He's like, hey, the hunt's still on. We're going to go to this new location. And I'm like, oh, okay. So a part of my Washington Backcountry thing that I do is I run social engagements. And I like to throw, similar to like BHA Pint Nights, where people come together for a common cause of public lands and public waters. My social engagements are for people to build community and make connections in the hunting world, whether it's newbies to veterans or people just needing hunting partners or whatever it is. I saw a need for that. And so I started throwing social engagements. Well, at my August engagement, I had a guy ask me about my hunt that I had coming up, and he was like, hey, you're not using that blah, blah, blah outfitter. And I was like, yeah, I am. He's like, oh man, I've heard really horrible things about him. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
So it just totally like left me with a pit feeling in my stomach. And I was like, okay, well, I hope it's all worth it. And so this is kind of long-winded, but go meet the guy. He's like, yeah, I'll meet you there at 9 a.m. Sharp. We'll pack in on horseback, all that. He's an hour late to the trailhead, which, I was like, the communication was so poor that I'm like, is he even going to show up today? Normally
Really?
If someone's late, they're late and whatnot. But so that started it off sour. And then when we pack in, what I realized was we are using a trail to get to this wilderness area, that there's an ATV trail that parallels it, that you can drive a quarter mile from where our wall tents were set up. And so actually on our hunt, we had our camps broken into and had stuff stolen from us.
You're kidding me.
No, not kidding you.
How far back there were you off of the trailhead?
That was another thing. So, packing in on horse, you're thinking, oh man, I think I'm going to go probably 8 miles because that's the distance at which someone is going to want to ride a horse versus, walk in typically. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We ended up going, I think 3.5 to 4 miles in.
That's it.
That's it.
Huh. How bad was the country?
Beautiful country, but we ended up camping right on a lake. And here's a part of the other story is all because of the fires in the state of Washington, all the people that were hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in the state of Washington were being diverted down the exact same trail that we were camped on and hunting. And this is, I feel like, is just even part of the story in its own right. But a quarter mile from where I shot my bull, we asked 30 backpackers 30 backpackers were camped there the morning that we passed a quarter mile from where I shot my bull and bugled it in.
Really?
But the night before, we asked some hikers, hey, will you please just wait to set up camp here? We'll even pay you money. But this is prime hunting area and the wind isn't right. So that's why we're not here. Otherwise, we would be sitting in that camp. And they're like, oh, no, man, we've been coming here for years. This is public land. We can do what we want. I'm like, okay, well, so the relationship between hikers and hunters was in public land users was interesting. And I started to get this feeling. I was like, well, we're not that far in. This is kind of an issue. So needless to say, my guide was, when I showed up to camp, he's wearing blue jeans and a sweatshirt. And my guide didn't wear camo the entire trip, which from, being new, I'm like, especially archery hunting, you want to get camoed up, as long as that's at least what I thought. Yeah. And I'm like, well, who is this guy? And so luckily I brought my diaphragms, my Phelps diaphragm. So I brought the gray reed and a white reed. And my guide only had one diaphragm with him.
Wow. Huh. That just seems weird.
Yeah, no bugle tube. It turns out through conversation down the road that he didn't even know he was doing this until 10 days prior to our hunt. So he's never been to that location. No bulls were patterned, no game cameras, no nothing. And so just really, I was extremely fortunate to take my bull, but I even had an issue with the meat as far as getting it back from the outfitter when the hunt was all over.
Interesting. And the fact that you're talking about him not having camo, I don't believe it's a huge deal. It's more for performance wear rather than actually concealing yourself, in my opinion. Because if you look at hunting elk like Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's all about movement. And
right.
Fred Bear says the same thing. Like steelness is your best camo. Well, that is absolutely spot on. And I just look at it like Jurassic Park rules: don't move, then he can't see you. And
oh yeah, and it's funny. I've heard you say that on your.
Oh, are you there? Are you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I've heard you say that on your podcast before about camo, and it's one of those things that, as a new hunter, you're just trying to figure it out. Right. And I haven't even been in the opportunity until that moment in which I truly needed camouflage, or what I thought I needed.
Well, I'll tell you that from a guide's perspective, and having from my understanding, and granted you can't broad stroke it and just cover the whole map with this, but also looking the part as a guide is part of the business. Having the appearance that you're on top of your shit, that you have good gear, that you have extra reeds, that all goes into the hunt and the client's perception, and it just all it's a lot of it's just a mind game. But I know guys that they may not believe in the camo, but they got to look the part. And,
well, I do like to have fun when I hunt, and so I had a buddy. I was like, dude, let's put face paint on, and he's like, no way, man. I'm like, oh, come on, it's like getting into costume. Like it's a part of what you're doing just for the experience and the fun of it. So I totally get that.
I did face paint for the first time this year, and I've hunted for, since my earliest memories are out in the woods, and it's just my buddy and his wife wanted to put on face paint. I'm like, okay, if we see, I think the deal was like, if we get a bugle here, and only here, I'll put on face paint. And then I ended up having to put on face paint. And it looked like I was fighting fire. It just looked like I had soot all over my face. There was no pattern.
Right.
I looked like Zoolander coming out of the cave.
Well, yeah, after watching like Born and Raised series where Trent has face paint on all the time, and then you got Trevor who looks like the Incredible Hulk, I was like, okay, I'm going to have some fun with these guys.
Yeah, well, my favorite one for the whole series was, it was Casey's Ninja Turtle bandit mask. Yes. I was like, my wife said something. She's like, "Is that?" I'm like, "That's not normal." But it was pretty funny. Like I specifically made her watch that part of that episode. We were both cracking up about it. But that's part of the fun. I mean,
if you're not enjoying yourself, why are you doing it?
Exactly. So go on, keep going. So that was basically a lot of it was just the small details, and I can understand not expecting 30 hikers to come down the trail because they got rerouted. I mean, I understand that. I mean, how would a guy know that?
Right.
But the rest of it, that just doesn't seem like you're being hashtag on point. What I'm saying. But,
well played.
Had to sneak that in there. So I mean, and for me, one of the only hunts that I've actually ever spent money on, was last year, and the pressure to actually fill my tag. I don't know if I could be somebody that pays thousands of dollars to go hunting, because I would put so much pressure on myself to fill that tag rather than just just enjoying all of it.
Right.
Man, that would be tough. I mean, I want to go on some of these amazing hunts, but at the same time, like I went over there to kill a kudu this year. I only saw one giant bull. That was the only bull we saw the whole trip, and luckily we had other things, and that was just a side animal. But I still felt pressure. I don't know if I'll ever be back. I really want a chance at a kudu. And
I equate it to gambling, right? If you're okay with sitting at a blackjack table and enjoying it for the process that it is, and you're okay with losing that money and going home because you paid for that entertainment, good for you. But my time is valuable, and it's hard to justify giving up that much money for something like that.
It is. So, and for guys that are going to go on a hunt, and this is coming from somebody that hasn't gone on a bunch of them, just make sure you're aware. Are you spending enough or too much to where you're going to take away? It's just like guys who draw coveted elk tags or a bighorn sheep tag, or, there's so much pressure to fill that tag because you're the only guy that has it, and that's the only time you're ever going to get it. I mean, I've seen guys that, like my brother had a bighorn sheep tag, and the pressure at some points, just took the fun out of it for him. He did kill one, but it was just a different dynamic.
Yep. Yeah. So a part of what I haven't told you was I had a buddy who he was from the state of Washington, but he lives out in North Dakota. And when he learned that I was going to do this hunt, he was like, dude, I've always wanted to, hunt. And this is a guy who I met in college and was one of my good buddies, but him and I never had the opportunity to hunt, and he never took the time, and I was too busy doing other things in my life to learn how to hunt from him. So he flew from North Dakota and paid the actual money to go on this hunt with me. And
Really?
the only elk we saw, and the only elk we saw and only animals we saw for an entire week in the woods was the bull and the cows that were with it when I shot it.
That's incredible.
And I just got to give a shout out to him, my buddy Jeff. We flipped a coin for who was the first shooter, but we did it by days rather than opportunities. And so he won, and I shot my bull on day 2. So he, so he's a good friend because he actually had the bull broadside at 30 yards before I even saw its head. I saw its antlers over a hill, a little knob, but he held out and he let me have that opportunity.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, because first of all, you don't know if you're going to get the shot. Second of all, that's an opportunity that the wind could change at any minute. Anything could happen. Somebody could bust. There could be, a coyote that runs through there and spooks them. There's so many different variables. Another bull could, come in. That'd be really hard not to take a shot. So that speaks volumes of that dude.
I know. Just he is a legitimate friend and an awesome person in general. So
yeah.
But I could tell he was absolutely crushed at the end of our hunt to not even see another animal. This was day 1. We saw sign, we saw tracks. Day 2, I shot mine, and we still had 5 days left, and we never saw another animal.
That's tough. Yeah, it sounds like you got lucky. I mean, with all due respect, with what you saw after that, the amount of traffic you were having in there, all the other variables, it sounds like you guys kind of hit the jackpot. Yeah,
and going back to the whole outfitter thing, it turns out that the outfitter, he didn't want to lose what he had and tried to throw us on a spot real quick without knowing much. And it was just kind of sad. I'm very fortunate that and blessed that I was able to take that elk. I haven't bought beef at all this year.
Did you happen to put a tape on him yet?
No, I have not. I'm actually looking at him. He's hanging on my wall right now. I'm going to have a shoulder mount done. My wife was like, in 50 years when we're sitting in recliners, what are you going to want to look at, a Euro mount or a shoulder mount? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Thanks for the support. Yep. Everyone that I was with and people that have seen it, they say it's probably a little over, probably 310 or something like that, 315.
Holy crap. Jesus.
Yeah, but a mature bull.
That's for a first bull. Yeah, that's actually would have been about the size of my bull I killed last year if I would have found him. He was everything dreams are made of, man, and he was only like 310. Guys are
right.
Guys are talking about trying to hit like a 400-inch mark. I'm like, dude, I'll take a 280.
Well, shoot,
that's
not even
bull.
Never even shooting a deer before. I'm like, if it's legal, I'm shooting it. I don't care,
Yeah.
And
you're doing it backwards, man. You're supposed to start off on like squirrels and then a deer and then
right. And that's so people have been like, hey man, you might as well stop hunting because you're never going to shoot another bull ever again. That's once in a lifetime. I'm like, oh, come on, man. I'm just getting started. But
there you go.
But I didn't so getting into the actual shot and the calling sequence of how it all went down was we bumped some cows right off of a trail that were uphill, and we figured, being September, there had to be a bull with those cows or somewhere near. And so one of the cool things that I did learn from my guide, which this is invaluable, is how he called to get the bull to come. And, we weren't locate bugling.
Big old lip ball.
Yeah. So what we did is he ended up just using both my diaphragms, but was cow calling to the cows, but going back and forth between both diaphragms to sound like two different elk. Mm-hmm. Which was, for me, I was like, oh, that's a great concept. And to be honest, I have no idea how many other hunters use that or if they just stick with the one diaphragm. But I was like, dude, a bull's going to want to come for more than just one, way more, especially if he thinks they're left behind. And so as soon as that bull that we didn't know was there, but we hoped, let off that roundup bugle, he cut him off with a bugle, and then it was game on, and he got absolutely pissed. You know, from he started raking, he started bugling, and he closed the distance to us so fast, to the point where I actually never even counted how many points the bull had when I shot. I didn't know it was a 6x6. I just knew it had antler points and it was legal. and so when I drew back, and I held, and he stood broadside uphill on me, and I had the absolute shakes. Oh baby, you know, from shooting up to a block target and only ever shooting a bear prior to that, it was quite an experience to draw back on a bull. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty all over the place, now or never, and I don't want to wait too long. So I tried to steady myself and just let one fly. And I ended up, I hate to say it, but I ended up front shouldering him. My elevation was fantastic, but I ended up going just a little too far forward. And before that day, I remember talking to the guide, and I was like, well, how do you know if you got a kill shot on an elk or not? And he was like, well, if they run uphill, you're not getting them, but if they run downhill, you got them. And so my bull ended up coming downhill right past me, and I instantly knocked another arrow, and my second shot, I double lunged him, pass through, and all I heard was a whack. And my buddy comes running down the trail, and he was like, where did you put that second arrow? You know, this is the guy that passed up a 30-yard broadside shot. And he's like, where'd you put that second arrow? I was like, I have no idea. I swear I was right on him, but all I heard was a tree. And it turned out that my arrow was stuck in a tree on the other side of the elk with a complete pass through. And my elk piled up about 150 yards away.
That's so, dude, you just brings back memories from when my buddy killed his first bull 2 years ago. And I'm actually already, I can tell you right now, I'm going to post on Instagram a video of us trying to pull the arrow out of the tree while you're talking about that. It's going to go perfect. That's going to be, dude, that's so cool. And so tell me, I'm curious about your setup now. So tell me what your bow setup was.
So I don't really feel like I have monkey arms, but I have a 31.5-inch draw.
Holy balls.
And so I am 6'1", but a 31.5-inch draw, and I'm shooting a 70-pound PSE carbon stealth. And so with a 100-grain Exodus broadhead, 350 shaft Carbon Express arrows. And so I'm pushing, I chronoed my arrows before my hunt at around, I was getting anywhere from 298 to 302 feet per second.
What was your overall arrow weight?
I never weighed it.
Oh.
You know, I wish I had those details. So 350 vein, I cut it down to 28.5 inches.
Okay, what was the GPI?
Man,
what kind of arrow was it again?
Carbon Express 350.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Maxima Red spine. So, but a lot of kinetic energy, to the point where that first arrow hit the shoulder and just absolutely destroyed it.
Really? Did you go through the shoulder?
I went through the shoulder, but the arrow ended up coming back out of it. But when we were butchering them and skinning them, he had nothing left of that shoulder blade. It was, dude, that's just crazy. Yeah. So it was kind of funny, you know, when I shot when I shot that and saw it, I instantly thought about your broadhead test that you did with Born and Raised on your YouTube channel, and how they were trying to shoot through the cow shoulder blade.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, they're ripping through that just fine.
Uh-huh. I'll tell you, it takes a lot of energy to get through that. And you know, even to this day, guys are like, oh, I guarantee I'll get through. I'm like, man, if we're talking elk here, I think it's a crapshoot, and you're counting on a little bit of luck, you know, getting through a freaking elk shoulder, because I think a lot of that depends on how the animal has weight on that shoulder, on that leg, or whether it's going to absorb it, you know, differently than if it doesn't. There's so many variables. You can't just say, I aim for the shoulder and I get through every time, because deer, yeah, sure, I believe that, but elk are a different beast, and that's well, you know, you relate it to if someone punches you in the stomach and you're not flexing, it hurts a whole lot more versus when you're flexing and you can stop the punch. It's so that weight on that shoulder, and that makes total sense. Yeah, and you know, that's a really good analogy. I've never heard that analogy before. So I'm guessing your arrow with a 9.1 GPI, you'd be about 415 grains, which is what the same way I shot for 6 or 7 years. And I was getting pass-throughs on animals at, you know, 70 plus yards. I never shot anything past that with that arrow, but even out to 70 yards, pass-throughs on deer, no problem. But we're talking blacktail, not freaking mule deer. Yeah. But and that was shooting like 262 feet per second, not 300, you know. Right. So, yeah. So, and how did you like that Exodus head? Because that's going to be one of the new heads that I use this year. Will be the next head that I test out on a hunt will be Exodus. All right. So I think they're pretty awesome. I can send you some pictures. I have the broadhead that hit the front shoulder of that elk, bent a blade and kind of dislodged it, because there were removable blades that you can replace, and dislodged it, but it held intact. And you know, you're not going to shoot too many more difficult things than that front shoulder. So the second one I shot actually sliced the rib bones when it passed through. So, I mean, listen, being new to archery, I don't have a whole lot of experience. I could tell you about bullets a whole lot more. But that Exodus broadhead is one that I totally recommend. It has kind of like the chisel tip of it is so sharp, it's almost like a cut on contact broadhead, but not. Yeah, I really like the thick blade designs and kind of the bone crusher on the front there, and I really do like the design of those. And then I was actually talking with Rad Archery through the DMs. It must have been yesterday. Shout out to those guys. They developed a head with Jason Phelps, and it doesn't look like an Exodus, but I really like the design of those too. I was thinking about trying. There's so many heads I want to try out this year. Thank God I'm going to Texas. You know, it's just so many. I know it's overwhelming, especially as a new person trying to get into the market. Well, the Muzzy hybrids, that's on my list. You know, there's a lot, and especially since Oregon can use expandables this year, it's like, dude, I got my work cut out for me. So yeah. So my buddy from North Dakota, not to knock any brands, so I won't say it, but he lost a deer on an expandable in North Dakota and found it the next morning all eaten up by coyotes because his broadhead never expanded. Yeah. You know, that's a worry I have. That's why if I was gonna go mechanical, I'd go hybrid. Yeah, right. That way you're guaranteed a little cut. Yeah. Better than nothing. Yeah. Better than nothing. And over here, where you live too, it's a jungle over here on the coast, man. And I shot through a couple fir boughs this year. They would be like the stem of the branches I shot were like maybe a little bit thicker than a cell phone charger, and didn't even deter me from shooting through them. Like I shot right through those things. Would a mechanical broadhead deploy, and from guys that have used them over east their whole lives, they're like, dude, you would have, yeah, no, don't do that.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad. Yeah. So
I
don't know if I'd ever use.
Don't waste your opportunity.
Yeah, it's just another failure point, and you got guys that use them, I think, better than guys. You're always going to have guys that do a better job of utilizing their gear. So the guys that aren't having them open every year, they've had problems with every mechanical broadhead they've used. There's probably something on the user end of those. The guys that have had rarities, there's probably something there. But it's kind of funny how there's different guys that have different perspectives, because either they don't stay on top of what releases the mechanical or engages the mechanical broadhead, that little band like on a Rage. There's that little collar. Those are like one and done, dude. You can't keep using those over and over again. It's just, that's what's going to happen, is one and done.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I take not opening with a grain of salt, depending on how many failures that one hunter has had. Not that your buddy's had more than one failure or anything, but.
Well, so my buddy he wasn't a fan of expandables going into it, didn't trust them, but he went turkey hunting with them, and he saw, and not that a turkey's anything like an ungulate, but he shot a turkey and he was blown away at the damage that they do. Yeah. And so that's what he was like, okay, well, I'll try it on deer. All his buddies shoot it, and yeah, so
a lot of guys are using too light of arrows with mechanicals, from my understanding too. They really cut down the penetration, so you really do need a heavier arrow if you're going to use those. And Oregon, I don't know how close you follow to it, but they cut the minimum bow poundage down and added mechanicals to the list of legal stuff. And I'm like, I think that's 2 wins. I'm a fan for it, but coupled together, you might be sending the wrong message there. So,
yeah, everyone's going to always have an opinion. This is what I've learned in life, and you are going to have the person that couples low poundage with expandable, and they're going to learn a hard lesson. But for the people that need that lower poundage because they have a bad shoulder, or or people who just aren't as strong, that's super beneficial.
It is. Well, my deal is like, how old are those freaking rules? Like we've had to update let-off rules, right? We've had to update rules as we go, lighted nocks, and this is one that I felt was way behind, because a 50-pound or a 40-pound bow is more powerful than most bows that were made when that rule was made.
Right?
Like, they're just, times have changed. You can get a great setup with 45 pounds or 40 pounds or whatever, and just granted, don't try and keep the speed. Just go with the traditional style of thinking with arrow. Guys that want to shoot 40 pounds also want to shoot super fast, and you're basically a traditional archer. If you're shooting 40-pound compound, you need to be shooting like a 450 or heavier arrow, and that's completely my opinion. My buddy's wife killed a bull with, I think, a 380 grain or 300. It was like a 370 or 380 grain head, shooting like 240, and she smoked it at 30 yards.
Yeah,
but so it's so, I don't know. Everybody's going to have an opinion, and everybody's like all freaking out about it here. It's like, let's just give it a year. Let's find out. We can't make all these claims without having anything to back it up on. And let's just see where it goes, because I was a proponent of making it legal, and that kind of shocked a lot of guys, because I bash on mechanicals every once in a while. I make fun of them, but they do have their place. They do, and I will use them in certain scenarios. Like when I go to Texas, you bet your ass I'm going to have a mechanical. I'll be shooting hogs down there, and that's going to be a time for me to shoot all sorts of different heads. I'll be shooting a different head probably at every animal,
Yeah, right.
So don't let me take the conversation away.
No. To just add to it, it's because of the opportunity. Why are you going to shoot so many different heads, or why are you even thinking about shooting an expandable? Is because of your opportunity at your quarry.
Yeah.
when you only have one elk tag, and for people to be successful, you have to spend 10 days plus in the woods every year. It's like, well, if you're going to run into animals throughout the day and night, being in Texas and stuff like that, you might as well start trying out some different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to be using a legit head, at least a hybrid when I go down there for whitetail, because I think I have permission to shoot one whitetail. And we have unlimited hogs, So yeah, I'm excited to go out and test all those things, because it's going to be, it's useful for the guys that watch the content. And I'm excited just to have more experience with more heads.
Right. Well, it's so interesting, the debate over like iron will broadheads, the high end ones, where they say, well, a pack of broadheads is $30 to $35, right? And how many of those are you going to have to buy year after year? Why not just buy a pack of 3 that's $100 to $120, and then just have a lifetime warranty and send it in to get sharpened and all that?
Yeah. Well, with me, once I use one, I retire it. If it kills something.
Yep.
So for me, that would be it's expensive.
Dude, you're a killer.
Oh,
man.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I that sounds so douchey. I'm just saying, like, every time I kill something, I keep it. And for me to keep like $100 or whatever, a $40 broadhead, it would be like, man, that's just too much money. I wasn't saying like I go out and kill all of God's creation, but that sounded bad.
Oh, that's funny.
But so tell me more about so you got these guys together that you had a social engagement and stuff. How many guys did you get to go to your first one?
Yeah, so not having any hunting partners. So it was really interesting. Well, I've recruited 2. One guy, I got him to take a hunter safety class with me. But that was after I was already had a year of hunting experience. The other one I met on OfferUp probably a couple weeks after I killed my bear. I was selling some binos and he was selling a backpack. And I find this goes into the whole social media aspect, but people are willing to sacrifice their lives and marriages to online dating. Why can't we do the same for online hunting partners? So I built this relationship with this guy who ended up being one of my best buds, and now we hunt together. But I met him through OfferUp. If you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a Craigslist, but it's app based.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
And I'm okay. So check it out. It's a great way to get some good deals.
Cool. Okay.
But I met my wife on Plenty of Fish. It's a free dating site, and it was love at first sight. We had our first date. I locked eyes. I was like, game over. And this year we'll be married 6 years, and we got our third one on the way. I got 2 young boys, ages 4 and 2.
Wow.
And we're living the life. I'm loving it.
That's pretty awesome.
But this was a part of the struggle where I'm like, dude, I'm trying to find someone who will take me hunting to teach me what I have obviously zero knowledge of. And it was hard to find someone that was willing to invest time into an adult. There's all these processes of take a kid fishing, take a kid hunting, but no one wants to take an adult hunting.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to do this myself. But now through that, I found a passion for wanting to help others. So getting it to your full circle question is that's how I started Washington Backcountry. Ended up writing a book, which is not yet released yet. Should be coming out hopefully this summer or this fall. And how I started my website and blog, and we've branched out into a YouTube channel and all sorts of different things based off of, needing mentors. And so you asked how many people I had at my first event. I had probably 15 people, but those 15 people were people I didn't know. They just happened to follow my Washington Backcountry Instagram account. And from that opportunity, it has branched off to me being able to get opportunities to hunt with other people, learn how to hunt different types of animals. And through my website, we've already been able, this rifle season this last year, we actually took a brand new hunter out, and a fellow adult who 4 kids of his own, and wants to learn how to hunt. And we were able to do that just because of the social media aspect. So this last one did in December, we had a little over 30 people. Wow. And eventually I plan on getting these social events large enough that vendors would want to come in. We're going to be partnering with the Department of Fish and Wildlife here in Washington for our next event, get some guest speakers, and get people together for a common cause. And that common cause is to grow the sport of hunting, period, because it's life-changing. And if you never have that opportunity to experience it, or have anyone say, hey, I'll take time and invest in you, you're never going to truly get that opportunity.
That's really cool. That the fact that you're getting 30 guys in a room off of an Instagram channel, and then actually being able to take them out. God, that's pretty cool, man. And then having the ODF or the ODFW, the Washington, Idaho, or whatever fishing game over there, get into it. That's kudos to you. That couldn't have been easy. I mean, it's hard to get anybody. I mean, I've been trying to schedule the podcast I'm doing tomorrow for months, and just getting 3 guys together.
Well, it's amazing. People want to be a part of something.
Exactly.
People want to believe in something, and the mission of trying to recruit hunters and mentor hunters, people can get behind. And so, I'm a school teacher, which I said earlier, but being a PE teacher specifically, if a kid does not have success within the first few times of trying something, they're going to give up. And they're no longer going to pursue that. Well, why is mentorship in the private sector and business world so important? It's the same reason. People need to grow and they need to learn, and we're not always taught everything by the parents that we have or the experiences that we learned growing up. So how do you learn those experiences? Well, by having mentors. So just like I'd have a mentor teacher teach me why classroom management is so important, the same reason goes, why have a mentor for hunting? Well, because you'll never know how to find animals if you never understand what animals need: food, water, shelter. And the concept of the triangle between, they're not all going to be in the same area necessarily, and they're going to travel from one location to another. And why do they like having the wind at their back so they can smell what's behind them and see what's in front of them? And all that stuff that took me 5 to 6 years to learn because I didn't have a mentor, versus the small things that you can do to tell people and teach people to help them have more success and find passion. And the ripple effect, I now am a hunter and have 2 kids and a third on the way. Whether my kids want to hunt or not, they're now going to have the skill to be able to. And the ripple effect is huge, man.
Well, I'll tell you the lessons that can be learned out there as well. It's very similar to sports. I mean, tenacity, sticking with it, teamwork. I mean, there's so many good lessons that can be learned out in the woods growing up hunting that you can get at other places, but you're also getting so much more than that too. All the memories, right, all the stuff, and failure, for one, how to deal with failure, how to stay positive. I mean, it took you 4 years to kill your first big game animal, and that's pretty darn cool. I mean, that's, it took, I think, what was it, Cameron Haynes was saying, it took him like 11 years to kill his first bull or something like that. And the guy's a killer. And granted, yeah, he's doing a lot of it on private land now, but that's because he's earned it. I mean, the guy could, I'm sure that guy could go out to his old spots out in Oregon and probably kill an elk or a buck. And There's just a lot to be learned outside of, and then you add in the meat. I mean, there was a post the other day on Instagram. I forget whose it was. It was actually Cameron Haynes. This guy was just shitting all over Cameron's post, and he, he's got his mob on there and stuff, and so the other guy was getting hammered, but he's like, why do you need to kill 4 elk a year when you're not going to?
You know what? I almost brought this exact post up earlier in our conversation on this podcast. Yeah, why do you need to kill 4? It's like, well, the meat's going to it's going to people in need. Yeah. But continue on. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the guy said, 600 pounds of meat comes off an elk. I'm like, what in the hell, elk? Where are you hunting, brother? Because I want to know where these giant, 1,800-pound elk are, because I get, 200 to 300, if I'm lucky, pounds of meat, off of, because that's probably a 900-pound animal. You think that, a third of the animal's total overall weight on average is meat, then where are you getting 600 pounds of meat, you idiot? And I don't think he's ever killed an elk in his life, so he was talking out his ass. But that is a good question. The guy did have a good point, even though his facts were messed up. We need, as hunters, to be able to articulate why we are going out and killing these multiple. Why do I need to go to Africa and feel the need to shoot animals? Why do I need to go travel multiple different states and go hunting? Why? And there is a good reason for that. And for guys that get pissed off at those kind of questions, I feel like they don't have a good answer. And so, there's a lot to be at. Trolls do come with a territory. A lot of times they are douchebags, but a lot of times they are, a lot of times they are not asking good questions. But sometimes when we get a guy that's asking a legit question like that, and the guy was a hunter, he just wasn't an elk hunter. So. And for me, it's because it's not always about the meat. And I say that almost, I guess, probably all the time. You guys are probably sick of me hearing, that question is, why do you like Toyotas? Why do you like the color blue? Well, it's never one thing, is it? I mean, it's always a collage of reasons that make it to why you love something. Well, I love the color blue because I don't know. I just love the color blue. I love hunting because there's so many different facets to what it provides me on top of the meat. Yeah. Why I like to go do that. And Cameron Haynes, he nailed the answer with, I eat this much meat. The average American eats this much meat per year. I have 5 people in my household. That equals more than meat than I'm consuming on just those elk. That just squashed that guy's answer right there. But I felt like there was a whole aspect that was missing from that conversation of, well, it's just more than meat, man. I mean, you can't for a guy that had a bull bugle at him close to him this year, what's that worth?
Oh, dude, you can't put a price tag on it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, like, that going on with the conversation that was on that post was, a trophy hunting, well, I'll tell you what, in some cultures, there's a saying that people die 3 times. Have you ever heard this before? Okay, so the first time a human dies is when they learn that they're mortal. So whatever age that comes at, when they learn that they're not going to live forever, that's the first death they die. Mm-hmm. The second one is when they physically die. And the third one is when their name is never spoken of ever again. That's when the person dies the very third time. Huh. And I feel like in hunting, why do you want to shoot the biggest bull? Well, it's not that I'm after the biggest bull, because I'll shoot a cow, I'll shoot whatever's legal. But why? Because I am going to honor that animal and stare at those antlers and keep the life of that animal alive for as long as I have that ability to. And so I feel like that kind of answers that trophy hunting mentality of, not that, trophy hunting, the meat is a trophy. Let's just get that straight. But, every time I look at my antlers of that elk, I get chills, and it brings me back to that spot in my mind of where I was when it all went down.
That's a really good point, and I've never heard that perspective before. And I'm probably going to have to steal some of what you said there.
Please do.
But for me, and like you said, the meat's the trophy. That's a great perspective. But when you start getting into wolves, then that wouldn't work. And I just, it goes back to it's never one thing. And I agree. I mean, for me, if I wasn't getting any meat off of an elk, I'd still be out there with a call and a reed and my pack, and I'd still be going after those bugles, even if I couldn't shoot them. I mean, if hunting wasn't even a thing.
Yeah. There's places in the state of Washington that are illegal to hunt, but you can go and just recreate on them for hiking purposes. That are some of the best elk hunting in the state. And so just going there with a bugle during the rut, you'll have some fantastic experiences.
Yeah.
And that can change lives.
Absolutely. And I don't know. I really enjoyed that perspective you just shared, man. That I've never heard that one, and that for me, the keeping the animal's memory alive. Because if that thing gets eaten, as first by a freaking wolf or a cougar, no one's going to remember that thing. And if you think about times that people find John Doe or Jane Doe, we even have a term for it. It really hits people hard because, no one's going to remember who that was, or no one's going to know who that was. Well, for people that like to personify animals, hey, there you go. No one's ever going to know who that animal or what that animal was or, anything about it. So if you want to personify animals, there you go. You can have Jane Does out there dying all over the place out in the woods.
Yeah. And, as far as the whole wolf comment, you can't always hunt prey without keeping the balance alive if we're true conservationists, right?
Exactly.
So you have to keep the everything in check. And so, you can't have your cake and eat it too if you're worried about calories.
Exactly. And there is a territory with hunting. It's a shame what happened with the grizzly bears. It's a shame what's happened with a lot of the wolves being, protected the way they are. And it's just, social issues. And I think Ranella put it the other way. It's a shame when social issues bleed into the data and scientific management part of wildlife, and that's that statement's so spot on. I mean, I couldn't put it better myself. So I want to, speaking of, I think Ranella, you said off the podcast that he read your book. Yeah.
So this is all, I feel like part of the journey of what Washington Backcountry's mission is trying to be, and what I'm working towards is, so take you back on the timeline. August 2017, I shoot my first big game animal. I hike out. I learn about archery elk hunting. I learn about the Born and Raised Outdoor Series. I decided to start my own Instagram account called Washington Backcountry. Learning how to hunt, buy a bow, and decide I want to write a book about my experience because, it's not archery hunting, but when you learn about how I shot my bear in front of 3 day hikers from Seattle, 2 of them, one being a yoga instructor and their 2 male students, I have some experiences that are story worthy that need to be written down and shared.
That is an interesting
and
dynamic.
So I was like, and, all this being said, 9 miles back is that's a long ways to go for a day hike.
Yeah.
And so I write this book, and I have always known about backcountry hunters and anglers, and I'm like, well, they're having a pint night. I need to go, and I need to network, and I need to meet other hunters. But this is already after I chose to create the logo and start writing the book and whatnot. So, but I didn't. This was March, April of last year, 2018. And so I go there and I see Steve Ranella because he was living in Seattle at the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, baby. And I try to capitalize on opportunities because just like that elk, you're not presented with too many opportunities in your life. And so knowing that I already had him quoted, I quoted some of the things that he has said about hunting in my book. I went up and started talking with him, and I was like, hey man, I just want to let you know, I really appreciate what you've done. I'm a brand new hunter. I'm writing a book about my journey of becoming a hunter as an adult and about mentorship. And I'm quoting you in it. And I just want to say thank you. And so we started chatting a few more minutes. And obviously it's like having Michael Jordan in the room. If you're a basketball sports fan, you know, everyone wants a piece of him. And so just like real briefly, he gave me a couple minutes and I was like, hey, you know, would you mind reading it for me? Would you be okay checking it out and giving me your perspective? And he was like, yeah, you know, how far along are you? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, email the Meat Eater website and let them know that you met me. And I said that I was going to check out your book. And so I sent him a manuscript, and he ended up mailing it back to me with a little review that I can use for the back of the book. And, you know, it's special.
So he gave you a good review.
Yeah, he gave me a review. He said, this is exactly the thing that a new hunter is going to need to hear.
Really? That's pretty inspiring, man. And pretty motivating. Like you're sending, because he's a writer and he's very articulate. And
right,
man, that'd be, that's like, man, that's really putting yourself in front of somebody that could really chop you up. You know, I mean, not that he would, but that had to be intimidating.
Yeah, well, I think with starting like the Instagram account and different things, you have to be okay with being vulnerable. You know, like the question, Cam Haines getting questioned on why does he kill 4 elk? People are going to ask you questions. You got to be okay with being able to defend your stance and articulate it well enough to have people understand. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give him my book, and hopefully he likes it. If he doesn't, well, then I got some work ahead of me.
Exactly. Well, I think I forget who it was. I was approached a while ago, and I don't think it was by you, but the guy was wanting me to write like blogs or and I honestly couldn't even tell you exactly what a blog is. You might have to clear that up for me. What exactly is a blog? And for guys that are listening to this, excuse my ignorance here.
So I actually run a blog on my website at wabackcountry.com. A blog is more or less whatever the author wants it to be. So I've actually thought about releasing my book chapter by chapter on my blog for people to read. A blog is it could be all gear reviews. It could be people's opinions. It's like a newspaper and a magazine put into one with whatever the purpose behind it is. But in today's world, you know, everything knowledge-wise is digital. And so it just becomes another resource that is free for people to go to get information.
Okay, that makes more sense. So like a newspaper slash, what did you say? It was a newspaper slash magazine. Okay, that is something I can attach a blog to. Okay, that helps sum it up for me. Okay, so you had me submit something, and long story short, you could probably tell I told that guy no, I am not a writer, and probably by my responses on there, he could like, yeah, like I like words spoken more than written because that's not my strength, man. So for guys that can articulate stuff on paper, you know, more power to you. I just don't have that ability, and that's exactly why I do a podcast and YouTube videos.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, you know, the different medias are important because, you know, everyone's they like to learn in different manners. Like, for example, my commute to work is less than a mile from my driveway to my work. And so I actually don't get to listen to many podcasts, but I have the ability to go to websites and YouTube channels at different times. You know, I can sit down on a couch and watch something while my kids play with toys, rather than me have headphones on or have a podcast going on in the background that just drowns out.
Yeah.
But, you know, so that's part of why I branched out to YouTube, and actually plan on launching a podcast this coming year also.
Really? That's pretty freaking cool. Is it going to be basically about what we've been talking about now?
Yeah, everything is all around mentorship and recruitment.
Okay.
So it's going to be the Hunting 101 podcast.
Okay.
And it's going to, you know, Washington Backcountry only has as much reach as people care about the state of Washington or the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, you're pigeonholing yourself.
Or even backcountry. I mean, I only called it that because I was in the backcountry when it happened. It's more of a starting point than it is like, do I bird hunt? Yeah. Do I, you know, you don't find turkeys in the backcountry all the time. And yet I'll go turkey hunting. So it's like not every hunt's a backcountry hunt. Right. It's just an origination of where it came from. But it's another way to just get my message out across state lines. You know, someone in Tennessee is going to be like, you know, searching for podcasts, be like, oh man, hunting. Oh, okay. Hunting 101. Heck yeah. You know, rather than why would someone in the East Coast care about Washington? Yeah.
You know, I was going to say is if you're going to have a podcast, you don't want to bottleneck yourself right off the bat with the title of the podcast. So,
right.
So you have an active YouTube page too, huh?
Yeah, I have an active YouTube page. So we just launched our website and blog in June of 2018. Been doing a couple different blog series. The podcast idea came off of the blog series that I've started, which is Hunting 101 series, where everyone that is new to hunting that ever talks to me, and I have the exact same questions, is the first one is, where can you hunt?
Really?
And the second is, how do you find animals? So I grew up backpacking, and I use public lands all the time, but I didn't realize the same trails that I use to go swim in an alpine lake or a mountain stream are the same trails that you could carry a bow and a gun on and go, you know, hunting. So the concept, I feel like, is missed. Like, people talk about public lands like, oh yeah, public lands, but when it comes to someone never hunting, I don't think they understand that you are sharing that exact space. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Like when you walked into those 30 hikers, I mean, and they were right. This is our public land too. You know?
Yep. And so that's just, you know, the message to share, you know, how to find animals. You know, I always was frustrated with people not being okay with taking me hunting because they don't want to give up their spot or whatnot. And in my book, I write about the unwritten rules of hunting. You know, there's an ethics code that is unspoken of in the hunting world. And for people that are new to it, they have no idea about it.
Yeah, like Joe Rogan. He did a podcast with John Dudley,
exactly.
And I think he struck a chord, not a good chord, with the hunting community. Like, dude, it's not your grand. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you didn't have to grow up finding these areas and hunting these areas. I'm like, you're talking from a perspective of a guy that doesn't understand because he hasn't had to deal with it, you know, regarding public lands. But he did have a good point as well, where you don't own the land. You can't kick somebody out of a public land spot just because your tree stands there. You know, I mean, So he did have a point, but very, very, you know, kind of a I don't know how to even put it, but it wasn't a very educated, in my opinion. It was a very basic.
Well, so the reason why I mentioned the guy's archery shop who sold me the bow was not because I'm trying to get business for his bow shop, but because when I bought the bow was the same time I decided to write a book. And I was talking to him about hunting and my story and journey. And he was like, and he was the one who told me about the unwritten code.
Oh, really?
And he was like, listen, yeah. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And he was like, I had someone mentor me, but I have never hunted with my mentor. He took me to all his locations and told me why he loves hunting where he does. But he also told me I'm never allowed to go back there, and that I need to find my own spots and whatnot. And not everyone's a trustworthy person, but the hope is that humanity is innately good and would follow rules like that.
Yeah, when I take somebody out, we talked a bit about this. Me and Brad Luttrell talked about this. Is if I take somebody out, there is kind of strings attached to it. And I say that say that tongue in cheek because, it's not like you owe me. What it is let's have a mutual respect here, because if I show you something somewhere, I expect you to let me know when you hit that spot. So I'm not coming in there right behind you, or if you shot something out of there, it's like something I was going for. There needs to be some sort of communication there, because now I'm sharing my spot with somebody. That comes with the territory. And, don't take other people to this spot without running it by me first, because that's kind of a douchey thing to do. I mean, there will be strings attached if I take you to a spot, and there will be accountability. Like if you screw me on that spot, I'll still be your friend, but good luck, good luck, man. Go find your own.
Yeah. So one of the really cool experiences that I had this last year was when I got to take the brand new Hunter out. I met with him beforehand, and I was explaining to him the basics and telling him, I was like, all right, so this is what you need to look for to find animals. This is public land, and this is our general area that we're going to be hunting. And he actually was able to find where we were hunting before we even got there. And I felt like that was a success, because I didn't take him there and show him, but I gave him the knowledge to go out and figure it out on his own.
Okay.
And not everyone's always going to agree with me on that. And obviously I might have had the area narrowed down a whole lot more than like an entire state or a region of a state. But I was proud of him. I was like, all right, good. Now you just got to understand how regulations work and all that. But you are already on top of being able to find places to hunt and where to find animals within that.
That's, and that's half the battle. I mean, part of the battle is wading through all the hype of products and companies marketing to you and claiming this, claiming that, and figuring out what's spine and all that. If you're archery hunting, that's such a big, it sounds like it's not a big deal to an experienced hunter, but I remember when I started out, it was like, dude, there's so many, like it's harder than just going out and picking a bullet, and the other side of that coin, and I think it's even harder, is putting in the time in the woods to find out what the elk or whatever animal you are doing based on what the needs are for that time of year, and then finding out where they go when they get pushed, finding out the dynamics of a hot cow when she's in heat, how often do they go in heat, thermals. There's so many things that go into that. It could be overwhelming. It is overwhelming for somebody. What really, when I only get frustrated, and I think this is probably true for a lot of folks, is when I have a failure and I don't know why, because then I cannot improve.
Yes.
And
yes, exactly.
That to me is the definition of frustration. And I don't mind failing if I can figure out how to better myself from it. But for guys that are going out there and they're failing and they're not getting in animals, there's having somebody say, hey, this is why. That is so valuable. And I even thought about having a challenge. Just listening to you talk, it reminded me of something I forgot. Last year, I was trying to come up with a thing to get hunter recruitment up. And I was like, let's have a challenge, like take a new hunter out challenge. because my little brother has never shot anything, although he has gone hunting, and I thought it would be cool to. But then I'm like, that's not going to work. And if somebody gets shot off my challenge, I'm not going to be, I don't know. I kind of scared myself out of it. But, I'm glad that somebody took that and is running with it. It's really refreshing to see that, because I was wondering, I'm like, well, how are guys taking guys out hunting without showing them their spots?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's ways, but like you said, if you don't know what you're doing wrong, you'll never know how to improve it.
Exactly.
And this hit me, this hit me probably last winter. I was coyote hunting. I was doing a little predator hunting in the winter months, and I looked down and I saw a coyote track, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. This comes from the newbie's perspective, where if you go into the woods, you're going to find animals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, if you don't find any sign of the animals you're pursuing, you're not going to see them in the first place. like I know we're regressing a ton on, the archery topic, but it just blows me away. It's like, oh yeah, people don't have to be scared of the woods. You're not going to just run into animals all the time.
Right.
It's hard enough to go search for them.
Right, exactly. So tell me about your podcast. Like, when do you actually plan on starting this thing up?
Oh man, I plan on recording the first one this Sunday with my hunting buddies, and it's going to be an introduction to the Washington Backcountry team and the experiences of how they became hunters. So it's taking hunting 101 is the concept, kind of like what Corey Jacobson's doing with Elk 101, not to copy him, but the title of it is, it allows you to go any direction. Garrett, here's my invitation. Would you like to be on my podcast?
Yeah, hell yeah. I'll come on to this show. I don't know if I'll offer much.
Oh, come on. You come on, talk about archery, talk about hunting.
Yeah. I'd love to.
It's the details. The details is what gives separation.
Yeah, I mean,
it allows people to make growth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always down to help people, man, and that's really, what do you do? Guys ask me sometimes, what do you do? What are you about? And anymore, it's like, just the simplest thing is I help people. That's basically what I'm about now. Yeah. I mean, I help people hunting and stuff like that. And I used to be, well, I do this, I do that, I do this, and it's just, narrowing that down to just helping people has really, I feel like that's actually helped me grow a lot. Just having a clear, defined purpose, hunting and helping people along the way. That's what I do.
So using like my teacher terminology is, a student knows how to do something. They have mastered that skill when they know how to teach it to others.
Yeah. There's a way to put that. Teaching is the mother of all learning, or something like that. Or what's that quote? I forget, but I totally understand that, because for me, if I, like for safety stuff, if I have to give a safety talk and I don't know anything about it, you can bet your ass I'm going to be learning everything I can so I can go into that, equipped to go out and help people with the right information. So.
Yep. Yeah. Like, hey, why do you do this? Oh, I don't know. I've always done it, rather than, well, this is actually why you do it for this example.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Are the Unbounded Pursuit guys part of that hunting crew at all, or are they going to make an appearance at all on there?
Oh, I think I'm definitely going to be having AJ from Unbounded Pursuit on the podcast.
That's cool.
To be honest, the thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to make what we do unreachable by people. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. I want a podcast to be your everyday Joe to your celebrities in the hunting industry, because you can learn from everyone.
Right.
Don't be too prideful to to allow yourself to learn from someone who is new to the game.
Absolutely.
And, you know, fresh perspective is fantastic.
I totally agree with that. And to further that, I will also say that guys are, I'm not going to say they're tired of hearing the same voices over and over and over again on podcasts. But one of the things that guys really like is hearing new people that they haven't heard before on podcasts. So for guys that are looking at starting a podcast, you don't have to get big names on there. Does it help? Sure. Yeah, it helps, you know, especially if the person, you know, helps promote it, you know, while they're on the show and stuff. But I'll say having genuine conversations with guys that are out there just like they are listening to the podcast, there's a lot to be said about that, and guys are hungry to listen to those over guys talking about the same thing for the 50th time on the 20th podcast.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. You know, the hunting world and just hunting in general, man, it's so life-changing for what it can do for a person that I have so much passion for it. I just want to share it with everyone and others. And, you know, it's like, I don't know if you've ever had this opportunity in your life, but when you learn something new and you love it, you want all your buddies to do it with you, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, dude, you got to come do this with me. This is freaking awesome. Or you find a restaurant that has really good food. What do? You tell everyone and you want them to go eat there. Why? Because it impacted you enough for you to go out and spread the good news. And so that's what hunting has done for me, and why I want to give back as much as possible.
That's cool, man. And if you ever need any help along the way, just reach out. I'm happy to come onto the show and help you wherever I can. So.
I appreciate that, Garrett. Well, you're an awesome person. Your podcast has been beneficial to me in multiple ways, and I continue to look forward to what you're doing.
Thanks, man. That really means a lot to me. Is there anything that you want to finish on for closing thoughts?
Oh man, that's great. I would like to say that if anyone ever hears this podcast and wants someone who will reach out to them for direction and a little bit of guidance, don't be afraid to reach out to Washington Backcountry on Instagram. And you can also get a hold of us on our website at wabackcountry.com. Everything goes directly to me, and I'll get back to you, because like I said, I'm here with a mission and a purpose, and I'd be selling myself short and doing everyone a disservice if I don't live up to that.
Yeah, and for guys that are, you know, there's a lot of value in exactly what you're doing, getting these groups together and actually getting guys time in the field with guys that know what they're doing. I don't know anybody else that's doing that. You know, like a lot of guys are willing to give, like me, are willing to give information, but I'm not willing to take every Tom, Dick, and Harry out. You know, like first of all, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, and I don't have enough spots. And so what you put together here is really special in my opinion, and I commend you for doing that.
I appreciate that, and I think the last final thought that I have would be for people to learn about our social events when they're going to happen and show up to them, make a point, because no one there is going to know each other. And a lot of it's an introduction, like, hey, what's your social media account name? Oh, you're that person, you know, so like my personal account name on Instagram is Reverend Night Train. Well, no one's ever going to know what the heck. Yeah. So every teacher has a part-time job, and I'm a DJ for weddings and parties. And so I named myself DJ Night Train, and then I got ordained to do weddings and marry people. So I'm Reverend Night Train now.
That's so funny.
But the whole point is, I've had more people say to me, hey, do you know anyone that wants to learn how to turkey hunt? Do you know anyone that wants to do this? Have you duck hunted? Do you want to learn how? All because of my social events.
That's pretty cool.
So it's a lot easier to have someone take you hunting when you've met them face to face and you've gotten the chance to talk. And it's a lot easier. It's not like a blind date. You're all there for the exact same purpose. You know, everyone in that room is there because they want to be there, not because they're forced to be there.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more powerful than a volunteer army, man.
Yep.
So, well, thanks, John, for coming on to the podcast. I think it was a great conversation, and really enjoy following you on your journey to grow. And you know, we just had another new bow hunter on here as well. And guy, like you said, people love following along on a journey, and you know, there's a lot to be said about your journey and helping others along the way. I think it's really cool. And if you guys want to go check them out, give them your contact information one more time.
Yeah. So my name is Jonny Mack. I run the Instagram account Washington Backcountry, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram is going to be the main account. We also have a YouTube channel. But our website is wabackcountry.com, WA as in Washington, backcountry.com. And it's all ways to get information. We got some blog series that are going on as far as how to learn how to hunt, follow our journey, and just some other tips and tactics to help you on your way.
Well, give them your Instagram handle as well.
Oh, so the Instagram handle, you can find us at Washington_Backcountry.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So,
all right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time, and look forward to coming onto your podcast and seeing where it goes.
Oh, heck yeah. Hey, I look forward to hunting with you sometime in one of your locations.
Come on down, man. No, come on down. You got to return the favor for me. I've never hunted Washington, so.
Oh, man, dude. Hey, well, if you want to come on up, we'll put you on some animals.
All right, brother. Well, you have a great night, and I appreciate you coming on.
All right, Garrett. Thank you, bud. Take care.
All right, guys, thanks for listening to this podcast. Jonny, thanks for doing what you do, man. It was a great episode. I enjoyed having you on. I look forward to coming on to your podcast and seeing that thing grow and seeing the impact that you can make for new hunters. For guys that want to get more involved with the podcast, again, you can give 5-star reviews on iTunes. That absolutely does help grow the podcast. You can go to the onpointpodcast.com. For guys that want to buy On Point gear, stickers, decals. Shirts are still out of stock, so I apologize about that. But also, it's a content hub where it has links to my YouTube channels and to iTunes and stuff like that. So depending on where you're listening to this, onpointpodcast.com is basically the central hub for everything. And it's a great way to support by going on there and buying the hats. For guys that want to go even further, you're welcome to go to www.patreon.com/onpointpodcast and actually become a patron of the show. And you get exclusive, basically insider information into the podcast. You get to steer the conversation, have a say of how the conversation goes, and it really does make a huge difference. We got a few guys on there that have been getting their questions asked, and it's still growing. There's still a small number of patrons, so the guys that are asking the questions are getting all the benefit right now. So it's a great way to become closer to the show, closer to me. You get more access to me if you guys want to have your questions answered. You want to talk to me more. I absolutely am on there all the time and making sure that the patrons are taken care of. So I appreciate everybody listening to this thing. I am really enjoying growing this thing, and thanks for following along the journey. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.